Hey everybody, welcome to Comics with Bueller. As always, I'm Bueller. Today is episode 65 of the new Coffee and Comic Show. This is where we show you some great books, we drink some awesome coffee, and read some of the comments you guys left on our previous videos. As you can see, I am not alone. I have my good friend Bob. Bob, how are you?
I'm doing well today. How are you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. Today's a pretty good day. It's actually Sam's birthday tomorrow. Or
Woo!
no, today.
Today,
because we're filming this on Sunday.
That's right.
So congratulations, Sam from Sam's Tangled Web. He's 50 or close to 50.
Close to 50, something like that.
Yeah, and he's been on my channel. He's been on your channel. We've been on his channel. All that good stuff.
Yeah.
So happy birthday to Sam from Sam's Tangled Web.
Happy birthday, Sam.
50 years old.
50 years old.
Nifty. He's not 50. But
Nifty 50. But
he's close on that.
We'll just say 50.
As always, we start off with the coffee that we're drinking, and we are drinking from Mocha Express, the official coffee shop of Comics with Bueller. This is a hazelnut latte because, yes, Bob was right. The eggnog is gone for the season. Of course, he's the one to let me know. The bearer of bad news. Thank you so much, Bob, but hazelnut's not bad. What are you drinking?
Just trying to help you out, brother. And I am drinking out. I'm drinking a 6-shot Americano because I needed to wake up this morning, and it was brewed with some cinnamon and has some sugar-free vanilla sweetener inside of it. And I got to say, it's dang tasty.
Very good. Well, I tried mine. It's not bad. It's not the eggnog, and I guess I have to wait a whole 10 months for it to come back. But you know what? This will do for now. So.
Oh, the horror.
I know. It's a rough life I lead. So, anyway, I want to let people know we are going to leave timestamps for when we start talking about the topic of this video. A lot of times in the intro, we kind of go a little long and there's a lot to cover. So the timestamp is down below. If you want to check that out and you want to jump straight to the topic, you can do that. Or if you want to sit here and listen to us be all friendly and show some books, at the very beginning, you can do that because we're going to start that right now. And we always start with our first 5, and I have 5 comic books to show off. He has 5 comic books to show off. We also have a giveaway that we'll do at the end of the video for these IT books. So if you want to check out who won, that'll be at the end of the video. But I will go ahead and start with my first 5. And my first 5 are from It's Alive Comics. They actually sent me these books, and I think we're probably going to read them and check them out and stuff.
Yeah.
They're pretty cool. This is Battle for Britain. This is almost like a trade paperback, little mini one. Red Range Pirates of Fire World.
Got a T-Rex on the cover. You can't go wrong with that.
I like that one. This is Breathers. Is that right? Breathers?
Breathers.
Breathers.
And you can't see the girls have gas masks on, so that's kind of telling.
Yep. Okay. Pink Lemonade Holiday Grab Bag. I remember Pink Lemonade. I covered this in one of my preview videos. And then the original Pink Lemonade #1. I love that cover. Anyway, these are pretty awesome. Like I said, they were sent to us by It's Alive Comics. If you want to check them out, I'll put a link down to their website down below. They have a bunch of different titles. Like I said, Pink Lemonade is the one I'm most familiar with. So I'm looking forward to reading that one. And the quality of this book, we were just looking at.
Yeah.
Man, these are high quality books.
Very high quality. I mean, better than the big 2.
Yeah, very much so. Nice cardstock. The ink is good. The coloring is good. Everything.
Pages themselves are very high quality.
Yeah, liked them a lot. So anyway.
And didn't you say, I don't know if you mentioned it, but there's no ads?
There's no ads. At least for the one I was looking at, there wasn't any ads.
Yeah,
so.
which is a plus to me.
There you go. All right, Bob, you're up with your first 5.
And with my first 5, I figured I'd show off some of these Year of the Villain books. Of course, this year we haven't been able to get away from it because they're just out every week. But here's some of my favorites. These are a few that came out on Free Comic Book Day. This is the Lex Luthor cover. And then we had the Cheetah cover, which I really liked.
These are all those incentive covers. You made the comic shop buy hundreds and hundreds of copies of books to get this. I did.
And then
very thoughtful of
here's the Batman Who Laughs one.
200 copies.
200 copies.
To get that one
And he
book.
Still has a ton of them left.
Yeah. Thank you, Bob.
Then here's one of my favorite ones because I'm a huge Gorilla Grodd fan.
I like that one.
Yeah. And then, of course, from Flash's Rogues Gallery, Captain Cold. I like that one, too.
I do. Let me look at this one real quick. I never picked this one up because it was the cardstock cover and it was $1 more.
Yeah.
Some people have restraint.
Oh, is that right? And some people like to buy just what they like to buy.
That's right. I don't know. Give me a break. Anyway, those are great first 5 that you had right there.
Thank you.
And thank you once again from It's Alive. I'm going to actually go ahead and put this pink lemonade. Go ahead and grab those.
Yeah.
We'll put this up there, give them a little bit more screen time. Because for one, I really like that cover.
For sure.
And
Thank you, It's Alive.
I didn't have to make a comic shop buy 200 copies to get that either, so that's pretty cool.
It's the day where I get brought to the table, folks.
No, come on. This is a good time.
Right.
But we're gonna go ahead and jump right into our topic.
Sure.
We're not wasting any time today. Our question that we asked last week on the sneak peek video, we always ask a question during that video, and the question was, Hollywood, is it good or bad effect on comics? Let me say it again. Does Hollywood have a good or bad effect on comics? And there was a bunch of comments, tons of comments, a lot of passionate feelings about this. Obviously, we live in a day and age where Hollywood goes hand in hand with superheroes now.
Absolutely.
Every movie is a superhero movie that's like a blockbuster type hit. For the most part, there are some exceptions.
There are some exceptions, but let's just face it. I mean, in the box office, the superhero movie has dominated the last 3 or 4 years.
Very much so. And that's what we're going to talk about. We got some great comments that were left. And then we'll also, once we get done, we'll tell you what the new question is for next week. And that's a pretty good one as well. It'll be very passionate. But Bob, you were up first. Go ahead and read the first comment that was left by Tony Miles, I believe.
Tony, he says, honestly, I'm just happy to have comic-themed movies being made. As for their effect on comics, I think they drive up key issues and first appearances for a while, but afterwards the price seems to cool off and go down to a more realistic level. Unfortunately, I don't think the movies are really bringing in many people into the hobby. The only time I think they hurt comics is when the movie character designs are transferred into the comics. After the first X-Men movie, the characters began wearing black leather. I've seen similar things with other characters as well, and it's kind of like the tail wagging the dog. He says a couple of things inside of this comment. What did you hear?
Well, he actually covered a lot of ground.
He did.
And a lot of the stuff we're actually going to get into other comments.
For sure.
That are in this that we've picked out. But the one thing he did cover that I kind of want to talk about is when the movies influence the character designs. Because I actually know exactly what he's referring to. You see that, like he said, he brought up the X-Men.
Sure.
And then they were wearing the black leather type thing because they wore it in the movie.
Right.
Punisher also saw some different effects from the Punisher Netflix show, or the Daredevil, I think, when he was on.
Right.
And then they actually drew the character to kind of look like the actor that was playing the Punisher. That's really interesting when you see that. They try to mesh them all together. I understand why. But for a long time, and when it first started, they weren't doing that.
No.
And I'll give you an example. I remember when Thor came out. And Thor, the movie, came out. I went and saw Thor. This is like the tail end, or the very beginning when I started collecting. And I'm like, oh, Thor, I saw the Thor movie. I really liked it. And I wanted to go buy a Thor comic book. And guess who was Thor when I walked into the comic shop?
Chris Hemsworth.
No, it was Jane Foster.
Oh, that's right.
Jane Foster was the Thor.
Yeah.
Okay. That doesn't make sense to me as far as especially for a casual person going to watch the movie Thor or going to watch Incredible Hulk or whatnot. And then you go to a comic shop because you're curious. And I'm talking about casual people that are just getting into it. And they go in there and they pick up a book and like, that's not the Thor I just saw on TV.
Right.
That's not the Hulk I just saw in the movie type thing. And I think they've kind of learned a lesson. And I'm like, if we're going to put out a movie or a TV show, we should have something reflecting that in the store.
Right.
And I think that came with time. That's kind of my take on the outfits. Like you said, the X-Men one, I don't mind the black leather.
Right.
But they do need to spice it up a little bit, type thing. Because, I mean, they actually made a joke in the X-Men movie. Like, what do you expect us to wear? The spandex or something like that?
Right.
And when you look at it like that, and I would much rather, the Logan movie, he's in jeans and a t-shirt, and that's my Wolverine type thing, more so than the yellow or the brown or whatever his outfit was wearing, and the big cowl that he would have on and stuff like that. Certain stuff they can get away with, certain stuff they can't. What's your thoughts on that?
There's a piece of that I really don't like, because I've lived with these characters for many years, And I do understand that, yeah, some of that stuff just doesn't work. You can't do it. But because of that, I think Hollywood has cut corners to do the easy thing. It's very easy to throw somebody in some leather and call them a superhero. Right?
You would know.
I would know. But like, okay, case in point, we just had the Black Widow trailer come out.
Yeah.
Okay, I have been waiting for the Taskmaster to be on screen for a long time. This was a guy in a motorcycle helmet, folks. It did not look like my Taskmaster. And so you're not going to please me with stuff like that. And for anybody who doesn't read the comics, I guess they would be okay with it. But I want to see like my original characters. I want to see them in all their glory. And I realize that you can't produce that all the time. But because of the climate of how they do things inside the comic movies now, I think some of this stuff gets left out, and I don't like it.
Yeah. It is what it is, man. You get what you get.
Well, thanks, man. That's pretty much just a like it or don't. Dude.
There you go. Okay, Bobby, you got the next one as well.
Okay, awesome. This one comes from Scott Thielen. He says, I wish that movies, TV shows, and other options didn't have so much to do with the comic's value. It used to be important stories, events, and first appearances within the comics themselves that made them valuable and sought after. Speculation is always determined by mediums outside our hobbies these days.
This guy pretty much just took a statement I've said before and just wrote it down there. I mean, pretty close. I've kind of said the exact same thing in the past. I've never been a fan of comic books spiking because of what's going on in a Hollywood type thing. That is what's going on, and that is the market that we live in, and there's not really too much we can do about it. Mm-hmm. Some might really enjoy it, some might not, but I've always been more of a fan of the reason why this book has more value than the cover price is because it's a great book.
Right.
Because of the writing in the book, because of the characters in the book, because of the artwork in the book. Not because of what somebody did on a movie screen or they optioned it for a television show that comes out and a TV show is not very good type thing. I mean, that happens. There's a lot of comic books that get optioned that you don't even, the TV show comes out and you don't even think about it type thing. It just goes right underneath the radar, but it spiked the book because the word option came out type thing. And a lot of times it goes down in value. Me personally, and I'm going to say it again, it's what's in the book that has value to me, and it's what's in the book that should have value to most collectors.
Right. I would agree with that. But one thing I do want to mention is that, and it seems like in people's thoughts, it's dominated by what Hollywood does. But if you do look at what's going on inside of comics, we do have things that spike because of stories and first appearances that have nothing to do with the movies.
Yeah.
Case in point, Donny Cates. He's written a lot of stuff when it comes to Carnage and Venom, and we have this character Null. Right. Every time that character is mentioned, his books, his first appearance seems to spike, and we know this big event's coming. We had a word that, Venom Island was going to be used in a story. That original book that had Venom Island in it spiked right away. And so, we do have comics that rise up in value and people speculate on because of what's going on in the comics, not because of what's going on in Hollywood. So that's still there, folks.
Yeah, it is still there. It's just not the main reason anymore.
Not anymore. I would agree.
It used to be the only reason, to be honest with you.
Sure.
And now it's the main reason is I'm buying this because, oh man, it's going to be an option or whatnot, or it's going to be a first appearance of the Red Guardian in the movie. He's going to be a character type thing.
Sure.
And that's all. It's all fun and great and stuff, but I don't think the ones that have the attachment to Hollywood have the legs of what the books that you just mentioned that are because of story and stuff like that. I think those will last a lot longer than the movie. Because after the movie comes out and years later, people, oh yeah, was that a movie? They just kind of move on. So,
I would agree.
Great comment. Thank you, Scott. Poor Hollywood. This next one is from Darth Bleak. That's pretty cool.
There we go.
In the long run, I'm afraid of it being bad for comic industry. What happens when Joe Public decides not to go to the movies any longer? The comic industry can't take another hit. Otherwise, it might be all she wrote for the business. And that would be a great tragedy to see such a great and entertaining business and art source wither on the vine.
Interesting comment.
This is Darth Bleak. There's a certain way he looks at things there.
Right. So, I mean, again, when we talk about, the comic industry taking another hit, of course, there have been all kinds of them over the years. I don't think this is the same type of thing that happened in the 90s. Of course, we'll have another comment that deals with that a little bit later. But, I tend to disagree with the fact I hear a lot of people say that they don't think that comics have brought in new people or more people to the comic industry, back to comics. I'm a result of that. As a result of these movies coming out, I've come back to comics, and I'm so glad that I did. I love collecting. I love the community, and when it comes to what Hollywood is doing right now, of course, it's not going to last, and nothing lasts forever. I think the longest run in Hollywood that for popularity were the westerns, and people are calling these the modern day western. And what happens when that popularity goes away? It just means people will stop going to the movies. It doesn't mean that people will stop reading comic books. As far as newer people coming in, I think that it's us that are going to be the ones that are going to help new readers come in more than actual Hollywood does. I mean, I don't know. What do you think about that?
Well, a couple things there that you said. I'm curious what your thoughts. So you said that the Hollywood helped bring you back.
Yes.
Okay. You were already a collector before.
Yes, I was.
You were into it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So it just kind of sparked your interest again that you've had in the past.
Right.
Do you think there's an effect to where nobody or somebody didn't have interest? Do you think the effect is there like you have on yours? If you didn't have an interest before, would this spark your interest right now?
Yes, it would, because I keep you got okay. So I got people around me at work that hear my excitement over these things, and I constantly talk about the source material, and so I know that there are people out there that talk about this stuff came from books, folks, you know, and it does spike the curiosity of people. I don't think it brings as many people in as we would hope it does, but it does bring new people.
Yeah. So what do you, his basic thing right at the very beginning, he's afraid it's bad in the long run. Do you think it's bad in the long run?
I don't, because again, most people who read comic books, are collectors. Yeah. And we're not getting an influx of new readers because of the movies. And so when the movies go away, we're still left with our normal comic industry. Yeah. And I think we'll have less spikes on the books and things like that. But I think that the comic collector, community as a whole is pretty strong.
Yeah. I would say about as far as the movies, if the movie industry kind of fades away from comics or whatnot, I don't see that happening for a very long time.
I don't either.
And the simple fact is, there are so many stories that are out there. I mean, we're talking about comics that have been around since the 40s type thing. And they can literally go and into those stories that have been written for 50, 60, 70 years and reference that material. These aren't original stories, what they're putting on the screen. These are stories that have already been written. Now, they're taking liberties.
Sure. And
they're doing some other things, but these stories have already been written years and years ago that they're using. Sometimes they do it more than once. Dark Phoenix, give me a break.
Right.
But they're not going to run out anytime soon.
No.
And if they ever get to that point, I think it's years and decades down the road. It took how many? 10 years to get to Infinity War?
10 years.
How long does it take to get to Secret Wars?
Probably less than that.
Yeah.
Probably less than that. But, one of the things that we have to give Marvel credit for, or Marvel Studios credit for, is they trained the American public for continuity. Yeah. They trained the American public for what we like, right, which is an ongoing saga of something that brings in all these other characters and elements that you want to know about, you want to read about, you want to explore. Yeah. And I think that by that happening, it opens the door for so many possibilities for this stuff going forward.
Yeah. Okay, I got the next one. This is from Kirby B. Kirby B, I think that's right. Says, great question. I think it's led to more good than bad. Personally speaking, my enjoyment of the MCU movies over the years finally led me to start reading and collecting comics again after a decade-long hiatus. Very similar to
Similar
you.
one, yep.
It might be few and far between that this happens, but I'm sure plenty of people in the community can also attribute a renewed interest from those movies. As long as studios give the filmmakers creative freedom to tell good stories, I don't mind getting more comic book movies, but at the same time, if the movies end up a disappointment and Hollywood moves on from comic book films, at the end of the day, the comic books are all that matter. So this pretty much references exactly what I just said.
Exactly.
I mean, I didn't read this before, but literally what I just said is pretty much what this guy just said.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, and again, you know, he says here, as long as studios give filmmakers creative freedom to tell good stories, I don't mind getting more comic book movies. You know, and that right there is a slippery slope as well. You got purists who don't want to see anything different, right?
Yeah.
And then you have these movies that are coming out with, you, like you just said, they're pulling from the comic books, but they're taking liberties.
Yeah.
Right.
And so some are not good liberties.
No, they're exactly. But let's face it, folks. We don't want an exact duplication of what we've already read inside of the comics, right? I mean, if you give me what I've already seen, in a way that's kind of boring. Yes, there's an homage to the original, but I would much rather you take the essence of that and create a brand new story and make it a good story. Right, and I think that's what Marvel started to do. They started to not try to have a superhero movie. They tried to tell a good story with superheroes being a part of it. And I think that's been successful. And as long as they keep coming out with that, I think they're going to be good going forward.
I think that it's a tough question because, I mean, I've talked to Chris Claremont.
That's right.
He was not happy. You were there. He's not happy with how they did twice Dark Phoenix.
Dark Phoenix.
Now, is Dark Phoenix a story you can put in a 2-hour movie?
It's not.
No, it's not even close. I mean, that story arc literally lasted over a year.
Right.
Longer than that type thing. And how you would take that and put it down into a 2-hour movie, they've tried it twice. They've failed twice.
Right.
He saw both of them. He didn't like either of them. It was an abomination.
Right.
He literally sat there and told us what he would do and how he would write it and how he would put it on the screen when we talked to him. What he said made a lot more sense than what I watched on that movie screen.
Sure.
So, you know, I don't mind some of these creators taking liberties, but stick to the story that we enjoyed, okay? Hit the major points, you know.
Right.
I've always said, like, oh, I watched Infinity Wars, I liked it. And they go, I like that scene when the Hulk goes crashing through Doctor Strange's, you know, house. I go, you know that's not supposed to be the Hulk, right? They're like, what are you talking about? I go, that's supposed to be the Silver Surfer.
Yeah.
What? Silver Surfer? So there's little things like that that change. And that's okay. I understand that. You know, I understand why they did that type thing. But when you're jumping into such a big story and the creative person who came up with it is still there.
Yeah.
You need to reference that person.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you need to get in contact and say, hey, does this make sense? And if they flat out say no, you need to rethink what you're doing.
Absolutely. I would agree with that. You know, when making these movies, you know, people have to understand how incredibly difficult it is to try to take a story that we've known for a long time and cram it into a 2 to 3 hour movie.
Yeah.
It's almost impossible. You're not going to please everybody, number one. Number two, it's not going to be faithful to the original thing that you wanted. What I do love about the current industry and what it's doing for that particular medium is that it's opened the door for a lot of these other types of mediums. So, you know, you have the Disney Plus streaming service who now has these TV shows. Netflix had the Marvel TV shows, and you got long form storytelling, and you can tell the Phoenix Saga in an 8-hour episode, right? Which would make a lot more sense. And so I'm kind of excited with how many different things now, because we have more possibilities of them getting things right.
Yeah, I think it's also the scope of the story as well.
Absolutely.
If it's a story to where, you know, it's a smaller story, and you could kind of, take some liberties on that. But when you have a story, and we keep on going back to the Dark Phoenix, that's just so evolved and so much attention to detail that was put into that story, you're not going to get it right.
You're not going to get it right.
It's very difficult. And I kind of feel bad for the people that try to tackle it. but don't try to tackle it twice.
Right.
Just some advice right there.
Absolutely.
So
but then there's the other end of the spectrum as well. I mean, if you really want to talk about it, I mean, there are things that they do get right, and then they beat over the head like a dead horse, right? I mean, how many times do we need to see Batman's origin, his parents getting killed, right? And they've done it, 5 times, I mean, in different forms. And it's like, okay, so we get his driving force now.
Okay, let's go back to the Dark Phoenix thing.
All right.
I want to just make a point of this. Okay, they've told the Batman story many times in different versions of the movie.
Right.
Different continuities of the movie, okay? The Dark Phoenix in the X-Men universe, they literally told the same story twice in the same universe.
Right.
The same characters. They just redid it.
Right.
And they didn't reboot it.
No.
They just retold it again in the same X-Men universe.
They did.
Did anyone not notice that?
No, I not until you just said it, I didn't put that together. But you're right, they did. It's Bryan Singer. Right? I'm doing this no matter what.
Yeah. Anyway, okay, Bob. Okay. You're up next from I think it's Weeb Rat 94.
All right, Weeb Rat. Thank you very much for your comment. He says, "Hey Bueller, love the channel. I would say Hollywood has a 50-50 impact of positive and negative on comics. Films based on comics have gotten a lot of people, such as myself, into the medium. However, whenever a new film or TV adaptation is announced for a book, the scalpers and speculators make books go out of print by buying tons of copies and then reselling them on eBay and at conventions for exorbitant prices in anticipation of the news making people want the book. I heard speculators crashed the industry in the 90s. I'd hate to see that happen again."
Yeah.
We've talked about that before. What do you think about this comment?
This actually brings up, I'll just say it, our question for next week, okay, which is going to be on the weekly preview video that comes out on Wednesday, is, are we headed for a crash? It's a new year. I figure I might as well look at it right now. It's 2020, and I think it's a valid question to ask. I do not think that there's ever going to be a crash in the scope of the 90s crash. I just don't think it's possible. No. Just because it was a different time frame. And the one thing that we lack, and I always want to point this out, is that our knowledge that we have available to us is so much better.
Yeah.
So we have the opportunity to not get caught up in the hype and to kind of look at it through educated eyes, to where I think in the 90s it was all hype. I mean, did you hear about this? Superman's dying, or whatever it was. It was all just the buzz with no backing behind it whatsoever. There is backing behind the speculation market right now.
Sure.
So as far as a crash, whether we do see one or not, I don't think that we will see one in the scope of the 90s.
No.
He also said, he's like 50-50 on the impact of TV and movies to comic books. And he referenced something that you said that brought him back into comics. Another person that was brought back into comics, meaning that he had a love for this beforehand type thing. And I think that's a big point right there. I think, like I said before, the movies to me bring back people more so than they make new people.
Yeah, absolutely.
And they bring back people into comic books. The people that they bring new people doesn't necessarily mean that they bring them into comic books. It just brings them popularity and familiarity with the characters they just saw on the screen.
Absolutely. I would agree with that. And also you said something very important. We have so much information available to us now, that it's a lot harder for that type of crash to ever happen again. But I do believe that if you look at the news, there are indicators that you can look at if you're looking at the right thing. And some people choose to, I think, ignore those things. And I think we'll definitely talk about that on our next video. Maybe. But I do believe that there are indicators out there that can show us a lot of what's going on in the industry right now. But again, you're so right. I think it does bring in, people who already had a love for comics. Yeah. They're bringing them back. I really truly believe that what's going to bring in new readers are people like us that are turning people on to books, saying, "Hey, read this because I think you'll love it."
Yeah.
And you want them coupling with the stuff that's on TV and movies. I do think we can get an influx of new readers, which is what will save the industry no matter what.
Yeah, I agree. I got the next one. This is from Freddie P.
Mm-hmm.
And Freddie P says, Hollywood is having a 50-50 effect in my opinion. Same what Weeb said there.
Yep.
I'm noticing more of my coworkers' friends wanting to figure out more about comics, but they don't dig deeper than a few comics here and there. But when it comes to Marvel and DC, it's a huge library of comic knowledge to obtain. I can see why people will stick with what the movies say for origins, events, etc. Can't wait to see Hollywood give some shine time for more of the indie titles. Boom Studios need some love.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's pretty cool.
That is cool.
That's really cool.
Again, Boom's having a phenomenal year this year. I've been loving a lot of stuff that's been coming out. But, I do believe there are a lot more properties out there that were comic books. That most people that don't know anything other than the big two would really be blown away to find out that this was actual comic book properties. And so I do think there's a lot more out there than we give credit for.
Yeah.
Which is why when you get a lot of the word option coming out, it seems like movie companies are, because they're so hungry for content, they're optioning everything right now. Which
yeah,
to me that's the negative on this, is that because you can't make everything. Just because it's optioned doesn't mean it's going to be made. It just means that they're optioning it for the movie, which means they have the possibility of, they have the rights to make that movie, is basically is what it is.
Yeah.
But we've already seen a bunch of stuff that they said was going to be made, and then it hasn't transpired. Why The Last Man? We've been waiting for that to come out for a few years now, and it keeps getting dropped. There's so many different things that have happened to it, and I mean, even with the big two, I mean, how long has it been since they said they were going to make a Flash movie? And finally, just this year, we have got some actual traction. But we've waited for 5 years for that movie to start being made.
There's a TV show, you know that, right?
I do know that there's a TV show.
So there's something there for you.
There is something there for me. This is true. But, just because it's option doesn't mean it's going to be made. And I think that if we really look at the negative effect, I think that would be more the negative effect.
There's a few things in here I want to break down. You brought up a great point that, people will see these movies and they'll be like, oh, I want to find out a little bit about it. And then they go and they find like 700 issues of Thor,
right.
Or whatever. It's just a huge backlog of information to absorb. I think that turns people off. I think, like, man, where do I start? It's that's why Marvel and DC, here's a relaunch, #1. They do that, and it's annoying to us as collectors because we've been a part of it for so long.
Right.
But the reason they do that, for one, they obviously sell more #1s than anything.
Sure.
But it does offer a jumping on point for someone new who just saw the movie that wants to get on board.
Right.
Seeing a number, this is issue number 5, and it doesn't say issue 1018, they might feel a little bit more inclined to jump on board type thing. So I get that. Another couple things is he's talking about the independent title, some love in the movies. I mean, there's a lot of movies out there that people don't even know are based on comics.
Right.
I think this was a DC thing, but Road to Perdition
was
a comic book.
Yeah.
Type thing. Nobody knew that, for the most part. I'd say 95% of the audience that went and saw that movie did not know it was based on the comic book.
Had no idea.
But the nice thing about independent titles, and I've seen a couple different shows this year, Umbrella Academy, The Boys. Mm-hmm. I've never read any of those books.
Yeah.
And it was really easy to watch those shows, enjoy those shows, and then just go right back and, I'm going to go check out some of the Boys books type thing.
Right.
Or the Umbrella Academy stuff. And it was really easy to get on board. I think that's kind of the future of the movies. I think what will happen is you'll get these movies that come out, and people won't realize that, this is a comic book movie, and we need to educate the people and say, hey, this is based after the medium that we love.
Sure.
Do yourself a favor. Go check this out. And then they go and find it, and they're like, man, this is awesome.
Right.
Because they really are. I mean, Boom Studios has some great titles. Something is Killing the Children. Let's make it a movie.
Let's make it a movie.
Let's just do it.
Yeah.
Once and Future, another great title. Mm-hmm. What's the one that we did? The Folklords, another great title. These are all ones that could be shows or TV or movies or whatnot. And then the jumping on curve for these movies or TV shows would be so simple to do. You won't have to know all the backstory or the everything that goes with it type thing.
Sure.
Very easy to jump on board. So I'm looking forward to more and more independent stuff coming out. And hopefully I like the TV show option for stuff like that. More so than I would a movie or a big screen. Just because they can get more depth type thing.
Long-form storytelling.
Yeah. So The Boys, perfect example. Like I said
awesome.
before. Awesome show. People jumped on it. People really liked it. I became a fan. I got to know about each one of the characters. And same with Umbrella Academy. And those are just a couple I'm throwing out there.
Right.
There's obviously more shows that are from the big ones. You know, Marvel's got their Disney Plus shows coming up. Those are going to be great.
Yeah.
But those are all characters that are based after the movie type thing, or at least people will know them from the movie and then they'll watch the shows.
Right.
Even though they're from the comic books.
Yeah.
DC has the CW network. They do all their TV shows. The Flash one that you've been wanting to watch and stuff like that.
Love that.
But great comment. Thank you, Freddie. I appreciate that. Really looking forward to independent stuff coming our way.
Yeah, I am too. You know, and you know, these studios, they get it wrong, they get it right. Some of the things that, you know, if you're going to make a rated R, one of these properties, The Boys is a great example. That book was as graphic as you could get, and they were true to what the book was, and not in a gratuitous way. It was amazing. What I don't agree with is some of these companies making a rated R movie or a property just for the sake of making it rated R, throwing cussing in, throwing extra violence in, when your book was never originally intended to do that. Titans, it just doesn't work. But for The Boys, amazing stuff, and I love to see that going forward.
Yeah, sometimes things don't work. You're up, Bob.
All right.
Last
there we go.
Last comment there.
This one comes from Bricks the Iron Beast. All right, Bricks. He says, in the 90s, early 2000s, I would say comic movies gave comic books a bad name. Now, the movies actually bring in new readers, so movies are effectively positive on comics.
What was wrong with the 90s movies?
Well, okay.
You didn't like The Punisher?
No.
With Dolph Lundgren?
I didn't like the Dolph Lundgren one.
What about the Captain America movie?
No.
No, that wasn't good
That
either.
wasn't good either.
What about the Fantastic Four movie that never even came out?
Let's face it, folks. We've had to wade through a lot of crap to get to where we are today. Those did, lay the groundwork of what we got now because they learned from their mistakes. But and I wouldn't say that they gave comics a bad name. I think that's a bad way of putting it. But we did.
They didn't give them a good name.
No. But we didn't. We had to wade through a lot of crap to get to where we are today. I would agree with that. I would say that when they came out with Spider-Man, the first Spider-Man movie, the '89 Batman, right, with Tim Burton, right, that like started the whole ball rolling on this. And then when they came out with Spider-Man and then X-Men, those were great movies, but we did have to wade through a lot of crap to get to where we are today.
Now, I would say that I look at Batman and I look at Superman, and even though their origin was obviously comic books, I can't really. I remember when Batman came out, when Michael Keaton and all that stuff, and it wasn't really like a. To me, it wasn't really a comic book movie. It was more of a character movie. Even though I was into comics, and I think most people probably saw it that way as a character movie because they were so familiar with that character.
Yeah.
And I'm curious to see if the same feeling was when Superman came. I was a little too young when Superman came out, to realize what was going on. But Superman is such an ingrained character.
Right.
TV shows, news strips, all that stuff, comic books, obviously. But when a character is so ingrained, do they really consider, this is a comic book movie? To where I look at Avengers, and man, that is a comic book movie.
Absolutely.
That is a comic book movie that we're watching. I'm watching Thor Ragnarok. That is a comic book movie type thing. To where those ones, the Superman, the Batman, and the early on, I always thought were more of a character movie. The character that was in the comic, but not a comic book. Do you see what I'm saying?
I do. I think Dick Donner's Superman, that was more of a comic book movie because they were, drawing directly from the original story. And I remember when those trailers came out when I was a kid. You too will believe a man could fly, and it was incredible.
That's right. You're older than I am.
I am older than you are. And then when the Batman came out in '89. I would agree with you. It was more of a character movie because it did draw from the comics, but they went their own way.
Yeah.
I think what people really loved about that movie more than anything else was that people felt they finally got their Batman, right? Because you had the '66 Batman, you had all the animated stuff, but it wasn't taken seriously. It was campy. It was a joke. And when that movie came out, I mean, I remember a bunch of us, we must have went to the theater that week at least 10, 15 times because it was so incredible to see our Batman on the screen. I watch it now, it's kind of campy, right? But back then, it was the dark Batman I had always wanted to see on screen, and it was more about the character, not that it was a comic book movie. I think you're completely right on that.
Yeah, I think that's what they focused on. And I don't think that like I said, I can't remember the buzz. I mean, it was... I mean, maybe you do a little bit more than I do, but let me ask you this. When Batman came out, were you collecting comics at the time?
Yes, very much so.
Okay. Was there like, oh man, I gotta go get this book, because there's a Batman movie and the Joker's in it type thing? Was there that type of buzz or?
I mean, it's funny because comic book collecting was different back then.
Yeah.
And you're talking about right at the beginning of the big hype in the 90s. And I think Batman was what set off a lot of that.
Yeah.
Because you had guys like me who were complete fanatics about comic books. Everything I did was about collecting comic books. X-Men were huge at the time. Teen Titans were huge at the time. And you had all these different artists that were starting to show themselves as being, absolutely incredible. And that's all we could talk about. And then, because of the fact that the collector's market started to join it, and then Batman hits.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people who weren't into comics at the time jumped into comics because everything about it was so hot at the time. And so I would say that movie, more than any other, brought new people into into collecting.
All in all, I think this topic, the question was, does Hollywood have a good or bad effect on comics? Mm-hmm. I think the question should probably be, does Hollywood have a good or bad effect on characters? Because what it does, it brings attention to the characters that we all know and have enjoyed for many, many years.
Right.
And the more attention these characters get, the better off it is for us.
I think so, too.
As collectors. It might not be driving a lot of new people in there, because like we've read all these comments, a lot of people are like, oh yeah, I'm coming back into it. And very few new people as far into the comic book realm. But the new people are finding out about the characters.
Yes.
And we got some really awesome characters. So.
We do. I mean, who thought I would ever live in a time where my aunt would know the name of Thanos, right? I mean, how does that happen? And so, I mean, for me, I think I'm glad I'm alive right now, right? I have wanted to see some of this stuff on the big screen for the longest time, and I'm like a kid in a candy store. And if you can take me back to that time, I was 12 years old, and give me that wonder and awe that I had back then. Here is my money. You can have it. Take it by the wheelbarrow, and you can have it all.
Yeah.
Just give me that feeling. It's like a time machine.
I personally got emotional. I actually kind of a little lump in my throat. The first Avengers movie, when they had that panoramic scene of all the Avengers on that overpass.
I was in tears.
And they just went around the circle and it showed all 6 or 7 of the characters. I was like, man, I've lived to see this on the big screen, and those are all the characters that I've enjoyed. And that was like once in a lifetime type thing.
Absolutely.
And, I don't know, they tried to do the same thing with Justice League, and it just didn't do it for me.
No.
But for the Avengers, on that one scene, I loved it.
I never thought I'd see the day.
Yeah.
Never thought I'd see the day. And I remember the feeling, the welling up inside of me as that's the exact scene happened. There was nothing like it.
Very much so. Okay, well, that's it. That was the conversation we're having. Like I said, the question was, does Hollywood have a good or a bad effect on comics? I think we did a great job covering it. Next week's question, and this will be on the preview video, I'll just say it again, are we headed for a crash? That is next week's question. So do me a favor, watch the preview video that comes out this Wednesday. You can find all the books that are going to hit the stores next week. And at the end of that video, just leave a comment and let me know your opinion. Are we headed for a crash? And then next week on the coffee video, that's what we're going to talk about.
Awesome stuff. I can't wait.
Should be good. Okay, let's move on to our final 5. And Bob, you can go first.
Sure. I brought some of my favorite David Finch covers from Moon Knight. This is Moon Knight number 6. I like that cover a lot. And then here's number 7.
Nice.
Of course, this is the one that has Spider-Man on the cover. And then we have number 8. Got a little cap action with the clock there. And then we have number 9. And then I love this one a lot. Here's number 10.
Very nice.
And of course, I think my favorite all-time cover is number 200. And I didn't bring that one.
That's all right. Well, you didn't drop any, so that's
yes.
Coincidence. We actually did a Just the Keys video on Moon Knight books.
Yes.
And we'll go ahead and leave a link to that at the end of this video. So if you guys want to check that out, we actually did that a couple months ago.
Yeah, that was great.
That was a lot of fun. Okay, let me show you mine. Good job. He made it. He's clean, clear. He didn't, okay. These are just some of my pickups during the week. Star Wars #1, a brand new Star Wars story. This one is actually taking place right after Empire Strikes Back, and literally right after the movie Empire Strikes Back. That's when this story takes a hold. Then I got a brand new Hawkeye Freefall #1, another new series that came out.
Really enjoyed that book.
You read that one?
Yeah.
Nice. Olympia #2. This is actually one of me and Bob's favorite books, I believe. He read this already. I haven't read it yet, but the first one we really enjoyed. This is by Image. Punisher Soviet #3. This is another series I'm reading. I really like this. This is like old school Punisher type thing. It's violent. Go figure.
Violent. Yep.
And then X-Men #4. Another book that was really hot this week. Some great stories in here. Kind of a mafia type feel to this book. So very cool. And then I have one more, but the reason why I'm showing this one is because we're actually doing a review on this book, and we'll put a link to that at the end of this video. This is Thor #1. This is by Donnie Cates, and we got that review, so check that out. But you'll see what we thought about this book, and you know, was it good? Was it bad? You're gonna have to click on the video to find out.
There you go.
There you go. So that's mine, final 5. But let's go ahead and get to our giveaway real quick for the IT books, and the winner of the giveaway is Logan Lumpkin.
Woo, Logan!
You are the winner for the Blackbox Comics. This is the 3rd week in a row that they've given us books to give away. That's it. I don't have any more.
Oh no!
From Blackbox. So if anyone wants to watch it, you want to sell us some books for a giveaway, feel free to do so or whatnot. But Logan Lumpkin, you are the winner for the giveaway, the IT books. Do me a favor, just leave your address, or actually just send me an email. My email is down below. Send me your information. I'll make sure to get these out to you. Congratulations, my friend.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
That's awesome stuff. By the way, I like the comments that you leave. He leaves a comment every week, and they're always very engaging.
Yeah, he's actually one of the guys that have been following my channel for a very long time, and he leaves a comment on pretty much every video, so it pays to leave comments on videos.
Absolutely.
So, not bad. Let me make sure we got everything here. We said Sam. Happy birthday to Sam.
Happy
correct?
birthday, Sam.
That's right. He's 60 years old. It's Alive Comics gave us the other comics. Thank you so much for It's Alive Comics. Logan Lumpkin is the winner. All that good stuff. Bob, thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks for
Why
having
don't you let them know about your channel a little bit?
So my channel is Everything Comics. I usually do a review, a comic book review while having coffee at a local coffee shop, and we talk about comics. I usually drop that about every Saturday morning. Yesterday I didn't have one. Totally missed it. Of course, I did let everybody know that I wasn't going to have a show, but I am missing it so much. I may end up filming a show tonight, just impromptu, just because I can't stay away for that long.
There you go.
But we got a lot of stuff great going forward. I just want to say this week, because of the announcement that was made last week, I did get to 320 subscribers. Thank you guys very much. I really appreciate that. And can't wait to see what this year holds for us, guys.
Yeah, you picked up like 100 subscribers in a week.
I did, just from that announcement.
Well, look at you.
Why, thank you, though. I appreciate it very much.
Very cool. Very well deserved. That's some great stuff. I enjoy watching. I watch it every week, and I'm on there every now and then as well.
That's
so
for sure.
Whether he likes it or not, sometimes I just show up.
This is true.
So because he films out in the open live. So. All right, everyone. Thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of the week. Like I said, don't forget to check out the preview video on Wednesday and leave a comment about the question. But don't forget also to like and subscribe. You know what to do. We'll see you next time. Bye.